saving grace. And with that, I want to introduce to you Murphy Rowe. Please put your hands together. Big welcome.
Thank you so much. Give it up for your host for the music we've seen so far. You'll have to forgive my use of notes here this evening. You'll see why. There's a reason that I want to get some things very accurate in what I say. So, coming to the stage next is Carol Sue Walker. It's 2014 and I'm hosting a comedy open mic. And this little old lady dressed in her Sunday best, complete with white gloves, addresses the audience like she's at the Chicago Theater and not a strip mall in Schaumburg. She says, Good evening, ladies and men. And as laughter overtook me, I was surprised, and I realized that most of the people in the room didn't get the joke, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna like her. And she went on and she said, my name is Carol Sue Walker, and I'm a comic and I love it. Though I'm not exactly sure how I feel about being in a profession where the highest compliment a woman can get is, lady, you have balls. Unless you're referring to my ex-husband's balls, I do have those. And the crowd ate it up, and I thought she was great. And it's hard making friends in stand-up comedy, and we're all damaged egomaniacs, and if you don't actually make each other laugh, the friendship will never work. And Carol Sue was genuine, kind, and hilarious, and we became close friends and writing partners. And she would help me write depression jokes and divorce jokes and of course dick jokes, and I would help her write chemotherapy jokes and grandma jokes and of course old people sex jokes. And I'm not being rude, she was very self-aware about being old. Like she had something for this. She used to write out all of her jokes word for word, so I'm actually like reading her script. But I'm not going to do the voice, that seems tacky. But just picture her stage persona, sort of a granny from golly gee whiz, Indiana. And she'd say, I know I'm old. Guys don't turn their heads to watch me cross the street anymore. Back in the day when I was a hot blonde starlet making the rounds in Hollywood, I was a 36 double D and I stopped traffic. Now I'm a 36 double long, and I gotta watch traffic doesn't run me over. And she really was a Hollywood starlet. She started doing stand-up in 1977 at the Comedy Store in LA, which if you know anything about the history of women in stand-up, is like a straight-up trailblazer. And she told me about being chased around the desk in the office by a lecherous movie producer. She got cussed out by David Letterman because she wouldn't join a comedians union. And don't get me wrong, she was pro-union, but she knew if as a woman she took a stand against club owners, she'd never work again. And she had a good line for that. She would say, I'm glad I'm a woman. I'm in the world's largest minority. But if you got her talking about like feminism or politics, the first thing she would ever say is, we all need to listen to black women more. They know how to survive better than any of us. And this is coming from a single mother and a 2-time breast cancer survivor. And she had a great bit about cancer, which is funny to me. But having been through chemo twice and radiation and a single mastectomy, she would say, I'm a cancer survivor, so far. And when you go through chemo and lose your hair and your eyelashes and your eyebrows, you lose everything. But now I'm in remission, and the first thing to grow back is my mustache. I look like Tom Selleck's sister. And I was so surprised when this geezer at a support group comes up to me and says, I could be your boy toy. And I said, when I need a toy, I just reach into my bedside table. But being a geezette, I thought, having a boyfriend might be nice. Then I could have 2 boobs in my life again. and she was one of the best people I ever knew. And she believed in the goodness in all of us, and in the great goodness, and that connected all of us. But it wasn't that fake, cheery belief in goodness that's all sunshine and lollipops. Because you could believe in her belief in goodness because she also saw the ugliness in the world and everything that was wrong, and it made her so angry. Like I would hear her, I'd go over there and I'd hear her yelling like, "Fuck you, cancer!" or "Fuck you, you stupid orange fascist!" But she also knew how to make me hear in my darkest moments when I was going through a divorce and watching my friend go through chemo. And she would say, "You are so good. I know you're hurting, and I know you're doing your best. Don't give up. You just have so much love left to give." So Carol Sue's third and final battle with cancer started a few months before the pandemic hit. And she was pissed about the pandemic too. She would call it the pandamit. And I think this is an old people thing, but she would say a tisket, a tasket, a masker, a casket. I didn't get the reference, but I liked it. I knew it's a reference to something. And during quarantine, she was a month into chemo. And I would bring her groceries and wipe them down with Lysol and leave them in the trunk of her car. And then we'd stand in the driveway talking, trying to remember what it felt like to find things funny. And then eventually she got too weak to come down the stairs. And so she'd open all the windows in her house and I could come in and bring the food actually inside to her. And one day I show up and she's sick in the bathroom from the chemo, throwing up, and the door opens behind me and it's Martha from next door. And Martha from next door comes in because Carol Sue had texted her that she was sick, and Martha thought it was an emergency, so she came over right away, but she forgot her keys. And so she came in and she gets locked, the door closed behind her and she gets locked out. Then she realizes that she left a pot of water boiling on the stove and her dog's inside, so she starts to panic. And the panic triggers an asthma attack. And so she's trying to, and so through the wheezing of the asthma attack, she's telling Carol Sue like, "Oh, Edith has keys to my house too." And through like the gagging in the bathroom, Carol Sue's trying to tell me how to get to Edith's house. So I take off running. I'm running down the street to Edith's house, and I'm banging on the door. And this is the middle of the pandemic. And so I'm sitting there, and I have to convince a little old widow that I've never met before to open her door to a stranger who's out of breath and clearly distraught. And then on top of that, convince her to give me the keys to her friend's house so I can save her from dying of an asthma attack. And I was like fucking Larry David couldn't write this shit. And luckily Edith had heard my name before, and she was like, "Oh, you're Murphy," and she was smart enough to put the dots together, and nobody died that day. And it was amazing. And the next week was not so good. The next week, Carol Sue was really out of it, and she started rambling about life and about the great goodness, and something inside of me knew that she was saying goodbye. But she wasn't saying goodbye to me. She was saying the goodbye that COVID was going to rob her from sharing with her grandkids. So I took her hand and I memorized every word and I wrote it down and I made a copy for each of her grandkids. And clearly I'm willing to break the comedian's code and steal my friend's jokes, but those words are not for me to share. Carol Sue Walker died December 23rd, 2020, quarantined in the hospital 2 days before Christmas, 1 day before her fourth grandchild was born. No one deserves to go like she went, alone, begging her pregnant daughter not to risk her grandkids' lives to say goodbye. And we all know someone who got robbed from the ending they deserved, but she didn't die of an aneurysm or get hit by a bus or even die of COVID. When you fought like hell and you've beaten cancer twice, you've earned that moment to say goodbye when the big fucking C comes back for round 3 in a victory lap. And I get so mad, and these people who can't figure out that the whole pandemic response, it's not about you. It's about making a tiny sacrifice so that the most vulnerable people don't get screwed. Like she would wear compression garments so that her arms and legs wouldn't swell up to the point of the skin splitting, but no, wearing a mask is too uncomfortable for you. She could handle getting weak and growing scared alone in her home for months. But staying home when you have a tickle in your throat is too much of an imposition on your freedom for some people. She spent years literally ingesting poison to fight off a deadly disease, but a free FDA vaccine is too risky for your precious body. And I just get so mad at how selfish and hateful people are being right now. And I want to put these assholes in their place. And I just wish I could hear what my friend would say to these fucking dickheads and how they're acting right now. And then I hear it. I hear what she would say. She would say, they're doing their best. They're hurting and they're scared. And that's not a pass for being shitty, but don't give their hate the power to drown out your goodness. No matter how good it gets, remember, you're strong enough to show up from a place of love every time. And if I have to live the rest of my life with her voice reminding me that I'm strong enough, even in my darkest moments, to choose the goodness inside of me, then she is pretty damn lucky that that voice can also make me laugh too, because that's fucking annoying as hell. And as a final tribute to her, I'll leave you with the line that she always used to close out her set. I have 15 more minutes of killer material, but I can't remember any of it. Thanks so much.
Keep it going for Murphy Rowe. I take it you have another song for us. All right.
No, I don't know. Thank you, Murphy. I don't know if I can do justice to
That was a great story.
Let's call this one Pass the Laugh. You gotta have balls if you want to stand up on the stage. A lady from the city of angels shows us the meaning of courage. Whether the lectures in the clubs or the tumors in her legs, she kept her sense of humor and showed us how to live, laugh, and remember why you're here. Smile. It melts away your fear. So let's cook the dog while vomiting and having an asthma attack. Long live Carol and the laughs she passed.
Zach Duenow. That's a great tale, a great story, and a great song about the story.